In tonight's in-depth coverage, we're following a budget battle at the state capitol.
The state house and Senate are fighting over the tax you pay and how those taxes will be spent.
Fox 23 anchor Rick Marinon is live inside the state capitol in Oklahoma City, breaking down a complicated topic in simpler terms.
Yeah, let's say instead of a state budget, these people just all want a sandwich. They want a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Right now, they don't know whether they want white or wheat, let alone how much peanut butter versus jelly they want. They just know in the end, by the end of the month, they're constitutionally required to deliver some kind of peanut butter and jelly sandwich. The tornado watch outside was just part of the storm brewing at the state capitol Monday.
We don't anticipate walking out of here with a budget today. So I know that you suggested we may be able to do that. I don't foresee any ability to do that because of our commitment to transparency.
House and Senate leadership met in Governor Kevin Stitt's office about their sticking points on the next state budget. The meeting comes after a month-long standoff where the Senate accused the House of not being transparent with the people's money.
Those things that we have not found agreement on that are still very important to the House of Representatives. Number one, a tax cut.
The House says the Senate needs to see the state's big budget surplus as an indicator the people of Oklahoma are being overtaxed. And the House is now refusing to hear any additional education funding bills until some kind of tax cut is not only considered but passed by the state Senate.
Focusing a lot on transparency, and that's great. But the Senate has not taken a vote on a personal income tax.
Senate Pro Tem Greg Treat says the House and the governor want to make the same mistakes that led to the teacher walkout in the budget crisis of 2018, and they refuse to accept automatic tax cut triggers.
You sent us a myriad of tax cuts last year. You sent us a smorgasbord of tax cuts. I don't really think that's leadership to be able to say, hey, here's 85 different options. You get to choose one. We chose grocery tax. We're not interested in CPAC scores. We're not interested in next elections. We're interested in making sure that we set a very prudent course for the state of Oklahoma going forward.
Governor Kevin Stitt acted as a mediator for the most part, insisting only that the state doesn't spend more than it brings in. And he wants to see a new flat income tax rate for all Oklahomans while eliminating some income tax brackets for the working poor.
If you have not got a 25% pay increase since 2020, you've probably got a reduction in your salary because of inflation.
So between now and Thursday, when the budget summit will continue, we expect there to be some backroom conversations and some small committee meetings when it comes to the budget. Something to note, especially here on the Senate side, this is the first time in a long time Okemah Republican State Senator Roger Thompson has not been a part of these negotiations. He was removed from Senate Appropriations Chairman just last week. Thompson was suddenly removed as Appropriations Chairman in the middle of this budget battle, which is now into a month long. It's now going into month 2. He was one of the main ones in the Senate demanding fiscal transparency and was a large part of the Senate budget talk, starting its work on the budget as far back as last Christmas. We were told they requested some spreadsheets from the House as a part of the transparency process so the public could see the budget as it was being adjusted. But the Senate at the beginning of April refused to hear any House bills and accused the House of, quote, operating in darkness, and things have been stalled ever since.
It is our conviction in the Senate that we started at the beginning to shine light on the budget process. And if you go dark in the middle of that process, the entire process goes dark.
Thompson continues to serve in the Senate representing Okemah, but he did vacate his Senate leadership office and move to another part of the building after he was removed as Appropriations Chairman. At today's budget meetings, there was a lot of homage paid and honoring Thompson for his work on the budget so far, and it appeared that he was one of the reasons he was removed was because he didn't believe there needed to be any more tax cuts. The grocery tax cut was a big enough tax cut in his mind, and he desired, it appears that Thompson was saying a lot of what he desired, he wanted to keep the current budget in place instead of making more tax cuts. Here is what Senate leadership said just last week about his removal from the position.
It's been a very somber week in many ways for decisions that had to be made, but I'm excited for the new chapter.
After Thompson's removal as chairman, the House and Senate both announced it was now close to a new budget agreement. Governor Kevin Stitt said Friday he thought the removal of Thompson was odd, but he doesn't have any control over what the Senate does. He also says he respected Thompson for his experience on the state budget after all of these years.
It seems kind of weird. It's a knee-jerk reaction.
getting rid of your offensive coordinator right before the big game or right before the Super Bowl. So Roger Thompson's been here the whole time I've been here. So he knows a lot about the budget, but I can't speak to, that's the pro tem's prerogative.
And keep in mind, even with this big budget surplus, it's not like no tax cuts have been given at all. Early on in session, the state's portion of the grocery sales tax was eliminated, and that is still in place regardless of what the budget is. Come August 1st, the state will no longer collect a sales tax on groceries. The move to eliminate that tax means the state will not have $418 million in annual revenue coming into the general fund. The state doesn't lose that money, it just will no longer collect that much. No matter what happens with the budget, that tax will be eliminated because the hope is that everyone is being hit hard at the grocery store by inflation, and this will bring them some kind of relief. Lawmakers on both sides overwhelmingly passed this tax cut and celebrated it just a little over 2 months ago.
The grocery tax was one of the most regressive taxes that we had. It affected people on the lower income bracket much more than people that made a lot of money.
Oklahomans all across the state are suffering when it comes to inflation costs and high costs of basic necessities like their groceries. And so we have prioritized this issue.
The elimination of the state's portion of the grocery sales tax does not mean all groceries will be tax-free. You will still pay taxes on hot, ready-to-eat items, and cities and counties will continue to tax groceries because that is their primary source of revenue for police, fire, roads, and parks. So where are the sticking points? We found out more about them today in the governor's office. They're actually very close on many things, but there are still major sticking points. Take a look at this list we've put together of where things are and why we're at an impasse right now. It's on your screen. The House and the governor still want an income tax cut of some kind. Stitt himself said Friday he believed tax brackets should be flattened out. He's actually pushing for a flat tax. But here is a look at how much, there is also a look at how much money agencies should get. Stitt wants flat budgets with maybe some small tweaks for inflation. The two chambers are also at odds over many portions of education funding as well, especially how to fund maternity leave. That benefit is out there. There is also a massive ask of nearly $350 million in deferred maintenance to state parks. That's now gotten so bad that many lawmakers believe a large flux of state funds are needed to fix those back up as well. Again, they will be meeting back out here on Thursday. There's going to be a lot of talks. Keep in mind, the Constitution, the state Constitution requires them to have a budget in place by the end of May, on May 31st. That budget then quickly goes into effect on January 1st. That is why there's not a lot of wiggle room here. We expect there to be more and more of these compromise and talks. But for the most part, a lot of people are taking what was said over the course of 3 hours and now going back to their camps and trying to hash out some kind of a deal. Sarah and Shay.
All right, Rick, thanks so much. Safe travels back home.
Right, you still have a lot to sort through, and they have a lot of work to do still.
do.
Thanks so much for breaking it down for us.